Hello, David here, and the project for today is documenting the Second Amendment rally at the Washington State Capitol. We're in Olympia, Washington this morning, and we're going to see what speakers we have speaking today.
For you to be fighting for these rights. Start paying attention to the Public Safety Committee, as well as the Civil Rights and Judiciary. You have right now elected officials and a government whose number one responsibility is to protect the community, and they're abdicating that responsibility. I see it every day on the committees. Right now, there are bills that are active to eliminate the death penalty and to eliminate life without the possibility of parole, which would take 3 strikes with that. And a life sentence with good behavior is 13 years and 4 months. I want you to think about that. There's also legislation that's been introduced that if it's first-degree murder and the person runs from the police, it would normally be a Class A felony. They want to bring that down to a misdemeanor. So, as much as you guys are here for the Second Amendment rights, you need to start paying attention to these other things, because your safety matters. It's your God-given and nature-given right to protect yourselves and your families, and that is under attack right now. I need your help to stand up and fight for your right to protection. Please stand with me, and I will definitely be there for you.
Representative Robert Sutherland from the 39th Legislative District. Another one of our big fighters. Let's put Representative Sutherland on.
Welcome to Olympia, Patriots. Let's let them hear you guys. Nothing like being interrupted in the most important part of my speech. Let me start this way. Speak up! Let me start this way. My grandfather, William Sutherland, fought in World War I. He was on the front lines in Germany. He was gassed, and he was stabbed, and he was buried for 2 days. But he survived. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. My father fought in the Korean War, as did my uncle. My older cousins, they fought in Vietnam. And while my service does not compare, I am proud of the few years that I served in the United States Air Force. If you have served or are currently serving, would you please raise your hand? Everyone who did not raise your hand, in the loudest voice you can muster, will you give credit to these people? I salute you, my brothers and sisters, those who have served. Thank you for being here. Today we find ourselves very far removed from the righteous path of freedom that our founders created. Instead of being called public servants, those in this building are now called public officials, trying to make you and I believe that they hold the political power. No. It was the citizens who created this government and who gave the elected servants very limited powers in order to accomplish very limited and specific tasks. And the citizens told those servants that their main duties were to protect the right of us. To ensure the servants perform their jobs properly, the citizens codified into law exactly what they expected them to do. And before anyone could even run for elected office, those citizens codified into law requiring that each candidate swear a sacred oath to the Constitution, to the law that they wrote, to the Constitution of Washington State, and the Constitution of the United States of America, which is the supreme law of the land. One of those rights that our public servants swore a sacred oath to protect was the right of individuals to keep and bear arms without infringement. I have a question for you. Have our public servants faithfully performed their sworn duties to protect our rights? No! Are you okay with that? No! Or are you like, well, gee, our public servants, they're refusing to follow our laws. I guess there's not much for us to do. Is that who you are? No! Are you slaves to these tyrants, fearing reprisals if you speak up and say no? Are you cowards who tremble in fear because the servants have disobeyed their sacred oaths to protect our rights? No! Or are you free men and women who will stand up to these tyrants? Yes! Slaves don't dare speak back to their masters. Slaves do exactly as their masters demand. On the other hand, free people will rise up. Free people will confront their faithless servants and demand their loyalty. As a free man or woman, are you willing to confront your faithless servants and demand their loyalty to the sacred oath they swore to you and me? Yes! Then do so. Here today. The officers are over here.
Hi.
Go back there after this rally is done. Find your representatives. Don't ask them what they feel about this, that, or the other. Tell them what you expect them to do. And never forget, those who hid Anne Frank during World War II were breaking the law. And those who killed Anne Frank were following it. Thank you, Patriots, for showing up in this wonderful Scottish weather. I'm Robert J. Sutherland from the 39th. I love this kind of weather. Thank you for being here, and it's time for us to get to work. Thank you. State Representative Matthew Shea.
How's everybody doing? Man, look at this. You guys, in Scripture, there's a story about Benaiah who went down into the lion's den on a snowy day. I love that. Let's embrace the weather here. We will never, ever, ever give up. We will never back down in defending our right to bear arms. So it was interesting, the Seattle Times said that calling Matt Shea a domestic terrorist actually has made him more popular. I love that. I love that. They're finally figuring it out. And the fact is, they're trying to label us all domestic terrorists. They're trying to use those labels and then use red flag laws to silence opposition. It is a Marxist tactic. It is a Marxist strategy, and we are always going to fight Marxism in America. The socialists will not win. Now, I want to tell you a quick story. How many of you have ever heard of Vladimir Vinnikov? Maybe a couple of you. 1941, Operation Barbarossa, the National Socialists invade Ukraine. And they come to Kharkiv, Ukraine, and they come to a house. The Nazi sympathizers try to take the cow of a family in that town. And a young man, Vladimir Vinnikov, all he had was a pitchfork, a wooden pitchfork, because of course they'd been disarmed by then. And the Nazi sympathizers tried to take the cow. He fought them off with the pitchfork. And then real Nazis came back and arrested him. And as he's sitting in the basement of a makeshift prison, his mom comes to the window of that basement window in this makeshift prison, which was really a house. And he's crying and he says to his mom, "I'm so sorry, Mom, I shouldn't have fought back." And she said, "Son, never apologize for defending your family." Now, the National Socialists took Vladimir into slave labor for years. And when he was finally able to come home, you know what he came home to? A family. Because the Nazis left the cow when they took Vladimir. Vladimir was my father-in-law. And when they came to take the cows of Ammon Bundy in Nevada, I wasn't going to stand by and back down. When they came to take the liberty of the Hammond family, which was pardoned by President Trump, thank God, I wasn't going to be sitting on my duff back in Washington State. When they came to take the firearms rights of a veteran in North Idaho, I was going to stand with the county sheriff and say, no, that's not going to happen on our watch. This isn't about one person. It's not about President Trump or Matt Shea. It's about we the people. We're just standing in the way. We all need to be on the line, standing for the right to bear arms, standing for all of our liberties, the right to life, the right to liberty, the right to property, and the ability to defend the same. That is what it means to be American. Now, I want to end with a couple of things very quickly. I talked about this weaponization of political labels. Label lynching. We shouldn't be surprised they're trying to do that because they can't win when we argue the truth. We got the truth on our side. They can't win. All they can do is label us. So don't be surprised if you get labeled. Don't let it distract you. Keep fighting. Keep up the fight. Don't let it talk to your legislators. And I'm going to say this. You know, I find it interesting that Antifa hasn't been investigated. After all of the things they've done, I find it interesting the John Brown Gun Club hasn't been investigated when somebody who's wearing their baseball cap tries to firebomb a federal facility in Western Washington. I find it interesting the Socialist Rifle Association hasn't been investigated, even though a member of that organization issued a death threat against me and my family. I find it interesting that Redneck Revolt hasn't been investigated, even though they posted a terror training manual online. That is interesting, don't you think? I think so too. The fact of the matter is, the real enemies of this country aren't being investigated. The real enemies of this country aren't being looked into. The real enemies of this country aren't being reported on by the media. The real enemies of this country want to destroy the Constitution. They want to destroy everything we believe in. I love this country. I served 2 tours overseas in combat, and I came back, and this is a new battlefield for us, isn't it? And this new battlefield, this political battlefield, we should never back down. We should never quit. We should never give in to those that want to destroy our Constitution. We need to stand up for it because we love this country, we love America, and we want our children to experience freedom as well. God bless you guys. Thank you for being out here. We'll see you later.
Matthew Shea is going to be Matt Marshall, Eatonville School Board. All right, and well, I'll let him introduce himself.
Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Let's hear it again for Matt Shea. So my name is Matt Marshall. I am the state leader for the Washington 3%. I'm a precinct committee officer for the Republican Party. Yeah. Combat veteran. Thank you. And recently, as of November, I was elected to the Eatonville School Board. Yeah. A lot has happened over the last year. We all watched the 1639 went into place. We also watched as our sheriffs across the state unified, saying they were not going to enforce this unconstitutional initiative. There were many of us from multiple organizations that went around to county councils all across the state, and with varying success, we were able to pass Second Amendment sanctuary counties. And now, we have an ongoing battle with the corrupt tyrant, Attorney General Bob Ferguson.
Exactly what he is.
A few months ago, Scott Bannister and I held a town hall out in Yelm. We talked to a former county commissioner and Thurston County Sheriff John Snaza, asking how can we get a citizen's arrest for the crimes against the people against Bob Ferguson. Well, it didn't go how we wanted. I did get a phone call from the FBI after the Seattle Times ran that. That was interesting. So we were left thinking, what else can we do about Bob Ferguson? So Scott and I decided, let's submit a petition for recall. So that recall was actually quite successful, except for the fact that it got blocked by the King County Court. We were actually able to get it. We were actually able to get this accepted by the Secretary of State. All right. We then were even able to get a good ballot title that was written by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Once we had the ballot title, it was referred to the King County Superior Court because that's where Bob Ferguson resides. Would you all believe me if I told you that 60 pages of our evidence was not considered? Then the Judge Bowman, decided we had insufficient evidence for recall and dismissed the case. So I wasn't overly surprised either. But this taught me two things. One, here in Washington, our recall ability exists in theory only. And then two, we need to remove the judiciary process from the recall, because that is for us, the people, to decide. So, like all of you, I am disgusted with the treatment of Matt Shea. Matt did not conform to party leadership when he was demanded. And he isn't a yes man, and now you see what happens. What's worse is this is not an isolated incident. Many of our representatives have told me that they fear party leadership. That they fear threats, or they face threats and fear of retribution if they speak their mind or speak out of line. Matt Shea cannot be intimidated. Because of that, he's become part of a bipartisan, multi-year political hit job. Has anybody here read the Rampart Group report? Yep. Okay. Well, you should go look at the Mall Here Refuge Wikipedia page. That looks almost identical. So, over the last week, I have called, emailed, and spoken with almost all of the planners of the Mall Here Refuge. In one day, I successfully completed a more in-depth review of the facts and investigation than the Rampart Group and the Matt Shea. And I stand with Matt. So I have a few things I want to say to the politicians inside right now. We are disgusted with your hate and corrupt party leadership who place themselves above our liberties. You have fostered and inspired the very corruption of government that brings us to these steps to tirelessly contest. Yesterday, I don't know who all here is aware, but those inside passed Senate Bill 64, or no, never mind, not passed. Senate Bill 6406 was introduced. There is no text on this Senate bill. It's a ghost bill. Guess what the title is? Quote, concerning firearms.
You can read it after it's passed.
We know they're going to add this at the last minute with no public input, and they're going to shove all of these other gun ideas down our throats without us able to do anything about it. So, our Constitution does state one thing that we all believe in: of the people and for the people, and by the people. What it's become, though, is of the elite and for the special interest. So, to the corrupt politicians, look at yourselves, look at the deceptions you preach, and the actual shame and dishonor you represent. We can all see you. We know who you are. You dishonor America's greatness. Today, when you leave here, visit your legislators and demand due process for Matt Shea. We will not stand for expulsion, and make sure you pay special attention to any representatives who do vote for expulsion. We need to hold them accountable. So those of you who know me know I like to follow the path less traveled. I got that from my father. He was a great man, and he was a great leader. He taught me to fight for what's right and what's just, to choose the hard right over the easy wrong, and to never fear adversity so long as my path was righteous. Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. So what do we do when our representatives no longer follow the will of the people? Mark Twain says it great. Politicians in diapers should be changed regularly and for the same reason. So I've got one other thing to say here. Did you know that I happen to live in the 2nd Legislative District? Did you know that J.T. Wilcox happens to be my representative? So with that, I am formally announcing my candidacy for state representative. 2nd Legislative District, position 2. I'm going to follow 3 main principles. Number 1, obey the Constitution. Number 2, follow the will of the voters in the 2nd Legislative District. And number 3, do what is ethical. If you would like to help me on this journey, it's going to be uphill. But one thing I've never done is go after the small fight. So, if you'd like to support me, Marshall4wa.com is my campaign website. And together, all of us, we can drain the evergreen swamp.
It's great to be back here in Olympia. I only had 3 mountain passes and 9 hours of snow driving to get here, but I wouldn't rather be here than anywhere else today right now. Thank you all for showing up. So I am the police chief in Republic of Washington, and I am running for the office of governor of Washington State. When Initiative 1639 passed, I was the first law enforcement executive in this state to stand up and say that I would not enforce that unconstitutional law. And my authority for doing that was in the state constitution, Article 1, Section 24, that states, the right of the individual citizen to bear arms in defense of himself or the state shall not be impaired. I don't know how more of plain language you can find other than that. If any legislator or the governor or attorney general don't understand that, then maybe they should get a 6th grader to read it to them and explain what it means.
Won't work, they're not smarter than a 5th grader.
Our rights are not up for negotiation. They're not for sale. They are endowed to us by our Creator. Agreed? Anyone who wants to take your God-given rights away from you is pure evil, period. I don't care who they are. And as your next governor, I will not stand for any infringements on our constitutional rights, period. There will be 3 tests that I will do on any bill that comes across my desk as your next governor. Number 1, and very important, is it constitutional? After all, the Constitution is a rule book for the government, correct? If it's not constitutional, I will not sign it. Number 2, is it good for the citizens of Washington State? The government works for us, not the other way around like they sometimes think that they do, right? We do not work for the government. They work for us. And number 3, can we afford it without any new taxes?
Happy New Year, Patriots! Thank you for being here. Let me start off with a very important quote. Government, even in the best state, is but an unnecessary evil. In its worst state, an intolerable one. My name is Anton Sakharov, and I'm running for governor. I want to tell you something very important. Not just an American, a proud American, but someone who's have seen the other side. This country is the best country in the world. This country is the best country in the world because we have First Amendment, Second Amendment. We have the Bill of Rights that's protecting us every day. And we have to protect the Bill of Rights. There's no other country where people like this can gather and speak freely. Speak about their freedom. And this is where I thank you for being here. But it's not enough to just show up. We have to protect it every day. Today, tomorrow, and throughout the year. 2020 is probably the best chance for this state to make a difference. And you know what? We have to drain the swamp.
Thanks very much, everybody. I think it's really important to really recognize how many patriots we have here. How many people that really care about this country and want the best for this country. I think there's too often that there's people that are going to attack you for the things that you believe in. And I think that we all need to get really used to the fact that we do choose to live in Washington State, where that is a bit more of a challenge than it is in other states. I think it's really important for all of us to have a round of applause for the people in Virginia that stood up for our rights. What we saw in Virginia was thousands of regular citizens pushing back against a government that was trying to take their rights away from them, and what we saw was a government that backed down as a result of it. I think when they were trying to push for confiscation down there, somehow we thought that it only was happening in Virginia, but it's happening all across our nation, and I think it's important that all of us fight back against that. Like you, I believe that we all have a duty to fight back and to have a society that's better and to defend the rights that we all believe in. For the last 20 years, I've done that through citizen initiatives that you all voted for, that you all were in favor of, that lowered your taxes nearly $40 billion. But I'm asking the voters a question that is the biggest question I've ever asked them. And that is that I'm running for governor and I'm running to win. I've heard it for the last 20 years. Which Bill of Rights is more important? Is it the First Amendment or is it the Second Amendment? All of them. Trick question, exactly. It is all of our rights that we need to have, and as governor, I am going to make sure that every single right that you have is protected and that they do not infringe on it anymore. I'm going to digress for my prepared remarks. I think that they are a bunch of people, may be upset with them, but they're going to pay no political price for the decisions that they make. And what I'm asking you to do this November is to hold them accountable, something that they have not been held accountable for the many years that they've all been in office. There's one thing that I bring to you and bring to this race that I think is really, really important. I have fought for you as a taxpayer. I have fought for you on your First Amendment rights. I am just as committed to your Second Amendment rights and every other right that you have, because I am sick and tired of politicians thinking that they are above us, that they're smarter than us, and that the Constitution is something they can just shred and have no consequences whatsoever. I want to recognize somebody that I think is really, really important. When the government pushes back against us, we need to fight back. And we need to remember that Lauren Culp did exactly that. I really admire what he did, because what he did is his battle was over the Second Amendment. I'm in the battle for the First Amendment because we have Bob Ferguson suing me and seeking to prohibit me for the rest of my life from being politically active in the state of Washington. Commitment to making sure that people can personally protect themselves and never have to worry about the government taking that right away. So thank you very much.
State representative for the 25th legislative district, which is Puyallup, 5 Southville kind of area. So if you're here today, come give me a visit sometime. I'm going to be very short because I've got to get back to work because I am a good Republican and that's what I do for a living. I just wanted to come out and voice some opinion because as a 23-year veteran of the United States Army with 5 deployments overseas, I value our Constitution. I value the liberties and the freedoms afforded to us within that Constitution. And I want you to know that you have representatives here in Olympia who are going to stand up and fight to preserve and defend our constitutional rights.
Thank you.
Okay, how's everybody today? Good? Who here believes in the Constitution? Who here believes in the Bill of Rights? Who here is tired of tyrannical misrepresentation? Me too. So my name is Joseph Rumbles. I ran for U.S. Congressional District 10 back in 2018 against Denny Heck. First run, and we got 40% in the general election, or 104,000 votes. And I am running for Lieutenant Governor to stand up against this tyrannical misrepresentation here in our state. Been a business leader for about 14 years and father of 2. I first got politically active when I had to stand up against the family court system. Who here had to deal with the family court system? Yeah, Boo is right. So we want it now. What do we want? Freedom! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Freedom! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Freedom! When do we want it? Now! Hear us! This has gone too far. Every single freaking day we get a news report of some law, some regulation that they are trying to put over the top of our lives. Most of these politicians have not read the federal constitution, let alone the state constitution, because if they did, they would know that the state constitution, Article 1, Section 1, says that the just power of the government comes from the consent of the governed. And I do not consent! My name's Anthony Welty, and I'm running for State Insurance Commissioner in 2020. And many of you might know that the State Insurance Commissioner here in Washington has recently attacked gun owners. You wouldn't think that insurance and guns would go hand in hand, but unfortunately, this has fallen into my lap. This was not a topic that I thought was going to come up. I did not think I was going to talk about guns in an insurance campaign, but I'm proud to because I stand for all of your freedoms all of the time. And you have a right as a God-given American, as a Washingtonian, to buy any insurance policy that you want. The State Insurance Commissioner took a partisan shot at gun owners a year ago this week, actually, and he is going to ban, or has been banning, gun insurance. So if you discharge your firearm in an act of self-defense, let's say somebody's attacking you in your own home, there is a strong chance in this state, this liberal state, that you're going to end up in the court system. We, as Americans, are entitled to due process. That includes getting out of jail via bail. That includes just defense. And how we pay for that is up to us. If that is a gun liability insurance policy, you have a right to purchase that insurance. Now, the sad part about this, though, is as I dove into this issue more and more, is it's not actually illegal. The policies that were being sold are not illegal, even though they claim they were. And the reason I know this is because I talked to the State Insurance Commissioner's office. This ruling came down from Attorney General Bob Ferguson, which is why we need to replace Bob Ferguson with somebody. 4 other states have done this as well. The state of New Jersey didn't even go through the Insurance Commissioner office. They actually just did an executive order and banned all gun insurance in New Jersey. In Washington, they claim it's illegal to cover a criminal act. I don't believe just because you fire your discharge your firearm that you're automatically a criminal. I believe you have a right to court and to due process, and you know, a trial in front of your peers. Which is also something that we should touch on, is jury nullification. If you do not know what jury nullification is, Google it, listen to a YouTube video. If you discharge your firearm, or you're in a court case where somebody discharged your firearm, and just because the law says one thing, but you don't believe that that is a just law, you have the obligation and the right to vote not guilty. If it is an unjust law, you do not have to vote guilty, no matter what the prosecutor says, no matter what the judge says, and they might try to throw you in jail yourself for contempt of court, even though you're standing up for the Constitution. Excuse me. Why this is a big issue, though, and why it's coming down from the Attorney General, and why it's not actually illegal, is because there is no RCW that says you cannot insure a criminal act. So even if they claim discharging your firearm is a criminal act, it's not actually illegal to have insurance for it. They are legislating from the bench. There was one, count that, one court case that one judge claimed that it was illegal, and they sided with the other party. So there is no RCW that says you can't insure a firearm. Yet they are trying to pass laws that say you can't. This is a pure partisan hack. This is the left agenda.
So somebody, you know, when I said that, you know, I go out and I do IDPA shooting and things like that, and somebody said, with real bullets? I said, yeah, it's kind of hard to poke holes in paper. To be perfectly honest with you, where am I going, back, front, or back? So, to be perfectly honest with you, it is a stress reliever after spending a week down here with these people. So, yeah, I was better or worse? It must be my dynamic approach here. So, one of the things that was hilarious, did you remember when Inslee was in Washington, D.C., telling President Trump that no teacher wants to be armed? Remember that? At the same time he's in Washington, D.C., I'm having a press conference on arming teachers. I go, you know, they talk about protecting our children and all that stuff. And if you want some entertainment, go home tonight and type in Seattle TV, one word, civic cocktails, and then guns. So about a year or so ago, I'm the only pro-gun guy on a gun panel in downtown Seattle. So the first half hour was that Jemiah Paul, congresswoman, that was out there. First half hour was all talking about seizing, you know, your AR-15, the evil AR-15, and impeaching Trump. That was the whole first hour. Second hour is introducing the panel. And, you know, I'm the little girl that sponsored the walkout at my school. Oh, you're so brave. You know, oh, I'm the King County Department of Health because guns are a health issue. And then it gets to me to introduce myself. And I look across the crowd. There's about 100 people in the room. And I said, you know, after the previous half hour, I'm not so sure this is a pro-gun, pro-Trump group here. All right. So anyway, the best part, though, is at the very end. If you go to the end and you see the last couple of minutes, I said, if someone was to walk into this room right now, you have 1 minute to assess that person as a threat and have a response. So that whole church shooting, right, that was about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes maybe. And one person got killed because the response wasn't quite fast enough. Excellent shot, however, I gotta say. But if you don't have a response in 1 minute, I said to this room of Seattle liberals, every one of you here is willing to have 10, 20, 30 children die before the police get here. And they go, no, you're calling us murderers. I said, welcome to the NRA. So it goes without saying that we pro-gun people, responsible gun owners, don't want crazy people getting guns. Goes without saying.
But that does not mean that they should make every one of us here criminals. I mean, every one of these bills that they're talking about is taking law-abiding citizens and making them criminals for the right of protecting yourself. So, yeah, I said I was preparing some amendments for some of the gun magazine bills and say this only applies to a criminal. Right? You know what I wanted to do is get the video trailer that criminal justice has, the criminal, the video shoot scenario, and say, okay, you got 10 rounds and 2 people. Here's the thing, go ahead. I go, you're going on the assumption that if you have 10 rounds, you're actually going to hit 10 times. I go, in a stress situation, you're lucky to hit somebody once. So today I have my 45. So I did see a t-shirt by a nice young lady, and I bought my daughter a 45, and the t-shirt says 45 ACP, because pulling the trigger more than once is just silly. Right? So we need your help, we need your support. God bless America, God bless Donald Trump. Thank you.
Gun owners of America. Gun owners of America.
Gun owners of America.
Gun owners of America. Gun owners of America.
If you're sitting at home and you contribute to the gun owners of America, stop giving.
The only no compromise gun group in Washington.
They're tougher than the NRA, aren't they?
That's right.
The NRA is bad, really bad. Gun owners of America is even worse than bad.
We do not support gun control. We do not support gun control fully loaded. We do not support gun control light. We have opposed every gun control at the federal level.
After days of silence following the Las Vegas attack, the NRA announced it was backing new regulations on bump stocks.
Interestingly enough, while the NRA is saying maybe we should regulate, restrict these bump stocks, Eric Pratt says no.